It's just a little after 6. So welcome. Glad you could join us tonight. Welcome to the April meeting of our nonprofit plant-based nutrition organization of Wisconsin, or like we like to call ourselves, PB Now. I'm your host, Terry Lynch. The mission of our nonprofit group is to educate, inspire, and support each other on an evidence-backed, whole plant food-based nutritional path for health and improved quality of life. Our group is open to everyone, those plant-based and those just curious about it. It's meant to be a non-judgmental place to come, get information, inspiration, and support. If you'd like more information about our group, our upcoming meeting dates, speakers, and resources, or to check out videos of our past meetings, just Google us at pbnow.org. That's pbnow.org. As we mentioned at the beginning of each meeting, the evidence of the benefits of plant-based nutrition in improving health and quality of life for people of all ages is published, and I'll ask for that confirmation from our nutritionist and Dr. Lieberman when they speak. But is published in non-biased medical research is quite striking. Whether it's improving health through increased energy, weight loss, preventing, slowing, stopping, or reversing problems like allergies, digestive problems, diabetes, heart disease, and early dementia, or increasing our quality of life by helping us just feel better quickly, strengthening our immune system, increasing our endurance, improving athletic performance, speeding recovery from exercise, reducing joint pain, clearing thinking, or reducing the physical, emotional, and financial side effects of the illnesses, drugs, and procedures often recommended to treat the conditions plant-based nutrition can help us avoid. The research shows that our bodies do a wonderful job of healing themselves if we stop damaging them daily with poor nutrition and start giving them the nutrition they need to heal and function optimally. It's truly remarkable. Now, let me tell you what's in store for you tonight. And tonight, we're going to hear from 3 speakers. First, we'll hear comments from our PB Now Medical Director, Cardiologist, Dr. Joshua Lieberman. Following Dr. Lieberman, we'll hear from Wisconsin nutritionist Joy Lenz. And after Joy, our featured speaker, nutritionist Karen Smith from the Washington, D.C. area, will talk to us and follow up with Q&A. Tonight's program should end at 7:30 Central Time. As a reminder, we have meetings every month, usually on the second Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock Central Time. Next month, we'll hear from Denver cardiologist Dr. Andrew Freeman, who will give us his annual review of the most significant plant-based nutritional research published in the past year. We're posting more information about our upcoming meetings on our website, pbnow.org. You register there or have already registered, you'll receive email reminders of our events as they approach. Quick technical note, during the meeting, everyone but the speakers will be muted, and we ask that you stay muted to avoid background noise and allow everyone to hear our speakers. All right, here we go. Our first speaker tonight is a fellowship-trained cardiologist. He is president and CEO of Wisconsin Cardiology Associates. He is past president and current trustee of the Wisconsin chapter of the American College of Cardiology. He's a member of the American College of Cardiology's National Nutrition and Lifestyle Work Group, whose membership includes nationally known physicians such as Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and Dr. Neil Bernard. He's an advocate for the use of plant-based nutrition to help improve heart health, general health, and quality of life, and has seen the benefits of plant-based nutrition in both his personal life and that of his patients. We're fortunate to have him here in Milwaukee and as our PB Now Medical Director. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Joshua Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman?
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Terry?
Yes, I can. Sure.
All right. And thanks for the wonderful introduction as always. I'm outdoors, enjoying some vitamin D and enjoying some sunlight, and my son's baseball practice. I'm just taking a break from right now. So I appreciate everybody being on this call, and hopefully everybody gets to get out and enjoy some of this nice weather. So as Terry said, I'm Joshua Liberman. I'm a cardiologist in town. I certainly support and advocate for plant-based diets because of all the evidence that everybody on these calls that usually hears about. And I see the benefits in my practice. Actually, I just bumped into a patient that I talked to years ago. I think I even told this story years ago. He's late 70s and had significant heart blockages in his coronary arteries, and had actually, because of a different illness, a different problem with blood clotting. It was recommended that he have surgeon, but he saw the surgeon. The surgeon said, "I think it's going to be too risky. You're going to bleed too much during surgery, and there's nothing we can do for you." And this is a guy who was having chest pain. Basically just walking, outdoors. If he walked to go get mail at his mailbox, he lives up a little bit north, and so he has a long driveway to get to his mailbox. He was getting chest pain every time he did that, and so he was referred to me. We talked. This is already got to be 8 years ago, and we talked about the benefits of a plant-based diet for heart disease. And I bumped into him yesterday, actually, just randomly. He said, "Dr. Liberman, I just want you to know," because I haven't seen him in a year with the change in my practice. He said, "I just want you to know I'm still vegetarian and I'm feeling great." And so here we are 8 years later. He started this when he was in his early 70s. He's now in his late 70s, and he's feeling great. He's having no chest pain. He's able to walk an unlimited amount, and it was just really I wouldn't even say reassuring, but it was just great to hear because it's proof that no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been doing something, you can always make a change if you're motivated enough to make the change. So another patient today who, she says that she cooks a lot, but if she had to become vegetarian or vegan, she doesn't know what she would cook. So it gave us an opportunity to talk about, well, okay, so what if we slowly kind of work into this by choosing one night a week that you decide to make a vegan meal, and knowing that it's going to always be that one night, whether it's meatless Mondays or it's Wednesdays or something, but knowing that it's always going to be that one night. What if you then the night before, the day before, you research some recipes, right? So you're not just deciding it on a whim, like, okay, tonight we're going to do vegetarian, or vegan, but I have nothing to cook with. I don't have any of the right stuff, so I don't know what to do. So I'm not going to do it then. But if you set one night a week, and you prepare ahead of time, you just search for vegan recipes that involve lentils, vegan recipes that involves cauliflower, something like that on the internet. You can get some ideas. You can get your partner involved in it. You guys can choose, and then you're already prepared and you're set to do it. And I said that's the way I think for that patient, she can start to get her foot in the door of eating a plant-based diet. So there's lots of ways you can do it. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing things, or who you are, or how old you are. You can always, as I say, you can always teach an old dog new tricks. I know that's what they not say, but I think you can. So that's some just experience from my personal practice. In terms of, I always like to just give a little bit of research tidbit out when I'm talking to this group as well. And one study that did come through, it was actually a couple weeks ago, and I saved it because I knew that I wanted to talk about it to everybody here, was in the Journal of the American Heart Association. And the title of it was Unprocessed Red Meat and Processed Meat Consumption and Its Effects on the Plasma Metabolome. Sorry. And so that just jumped out at me because it's talking about metabolism, and it's talking about actually new ways of potentially evaluating metabolism. And it turns out that we know actually through Dean Ornish's work that what you eat not only changes your gut flora, which is all the rage these days, talking about their intestinal flora and their microbiome and all this kind of stuff, but it can change your genetic expression as well. And based on what genes are expressed and what genes are not expressed, it can change your metabolism. And so you can look at multiple features of somebody's metabolism by looking at large populations, and you can predict, and you can see of the meat eaters what happens to their metabolism. And if you look at what happens to their metabolism, you can say, well, how about the metabolisms of people who have heart disease? Is that similar to the metabolisms of people who eat red meat? And sure enough, this is the study that was done. They looked at a database called the UK Biobank. I think I've referred to it a couple times over the last couple of years. But it's this enormous database of almost 100,000 individuals in the United Kingdom, and it classifies a lot of blood tests. They took genetic samples from the people who volunteered for this study, and they also filled out diet surveys. And sure enough, what they found was that there were certain fingerprints, I guess, so to speak, certain signatures, certain metabolic signatures that are consistent amongst red meat eaters and processed red meat eaters, that are also consistent amongst patients who have heart disease. And then when they looked at did some genetic analyses, some really high-end genetic analyses, they saw that, sure, the red meat intake was related to turning on and off genes, gene expression, that promoted ischemic heart disease or blockages. And so this is just yet another data point that suggests that it's not just that there's, that the saturated fat in red meat is bad for you, or that the cholesterol is bad for you, but that the actual meat itself, just eating red meat itself, actually changes your gene expression, changes your metabolism for the worse, and increases risk for heart attack. So I thought that was obviously interesting. Obviously, we're preaching to the choir here, but certainly the healthier you eat, the healthier your microbiome is going to be. That's the intestines, the intestinal flora. But the healthier your metabolism is going to be, and the healthier your genetic signature will be. So with that, thanks everybody for being on the call, and back to you, Terry.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Lieberman, and love hearing about that person who's 7-8 years out now, and it's kind of in my age range too.
Yeah.
And the great results where they had a hard time walking the mailbox, and now they're that many years out and they don't have chest pain at all.
Oh yeah. He's he said to me, he's like, he would never go back. There's no reason. I mean, it's not like, oh, I've done it, I finished. He said he feels great, and we fixed this problem. This is a guy who 8 years ago was told he needed heart surgery, right? And we are 8 years later, and not only does he not need heart surgery, right? It's not like we're just delaying it, but he's feeling so good that he doesn't need anything done in his heart at all.
See, I've got one question for you too. We've got one question in the chat that, what about taking B12 on a vegan diet?
Yeah, I mean, I think we get this question a lot. Yeah, if you're vegan, you need a source of B12. There's no question. We no longer can create B12 ourselves because we've adapted, because our food is too clean, and we're no longer ingesting the bacteria that can do this for us. So either nutritional yeast or B12 supplement, that's all you need.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Lieberman. And our second speaker tonight is a registered dietitian who practices in the Lake Country, just west of Milwaukee. In her words, for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to help people feel better. Well, she became a registered dietitian, and for over 20 years now, has been helping people across the age and health spectrum to do just that, to feel their best. In her practice, she offers, among other things, an online group course called Plant You, as well as virtual one-to-one sessions to help people transition to a plant-based diet. She is married, and her husband, Dr. Michael Lenz, is a plant-based pediatrician and internist who is making a move to Fredericton, Wauwatosa in the next couple weeks. She and Michael have 3 school-age children, and you can find more information about her practice at plantpoweredjoy.com. I'm pleased to welcome registered dietitian Joy Lenz. Joy?
Yes. Hey, everybody. So I am actually going to go ahead and share my screen right now and get going. So I am super excited to be here tonight. And let's see, I think I can do this. Yeah. Okay. So my website is Plant Powered Joy, and it is a new website and it's a new blog. I have a few recipes on there, so I'm just really kind of getting going on that. So you can check that out. It's plantpoweredjoy.com. But tonight I wanted to focus on the topic of something that was brought up to me last week. And I'm also super excited to hear Karen after this, Karen. So I really am excited to hear what you say, and I hope that we can complement each other too. So last week I was talking with a client, and literally one of the first things she said to me was, cooking is torture. And I could relate to her so much. But I also knew it's like, okay, I want to help. I want to help you. So she is in my situation where we have older kids, and mine happen to all be home right now. And she had some kids at home as well. And so it's, how do you make everybody happy? All right. And so there's some things that I shared with her that I want to share with you tonight. All right. And so what I'm going to do is just show you some meals that I've made that I think are fairly family friendly. Now I'm starting out with two that look a little bit different, but on the left side is a quinoa, and then that is tempeh in there that has been sauteed with some vegetables. And then the seasonings are more like Spanish, cumin, garlic, things like that. So that's a Spanish quinoa with tempeh. Tempeh is usually really bitter, so it really needs a lot of flavor to it. And then on the right side is a black bean burger that I literally just put on my blog, on my recipe blog, about an hour ago. So that recipe is right there on Plant Powered Joy I think it's a family friendly black bean burger that I made. And I ate it last night and today, actually. Okay, then a few more. So one of the things that I worked with her on was, to help make it easier, maybe you have like a pasta night, and every Monday night is going to be some sort of pasta dish. On the left side here is curry. We eat quite a bit of curry in my house because I love it. It's so loaded with veggies, and then you can add in different beans. So maybe like an Indian or Asian night. And then on the right side there is pasta, and then I threw in beans on that one. And then the other thing that kind of I worked with her and then my kids do sometimes have meat. So dishes like these two right here are examples where if you make one dish, but if other people then at the end want to have some meat along with it, that's okay. And that's kind of what her thing was too. All right, one of my favorite recipe sites is Feasting at Home, and literally tonight this is what we're eating, this white bean soup. I could show you a bowl of it, but I won't. I really don't have time. But and it is one of those things where here's another one where we do eat a lot of soup. I think it's easier for my family to get vegetables in and beans. So we do eat a lot of soup, I would say. And as we head into spring and summer, I'll probably try to make it a little less often, but we do eat it even in the summer because it still, to me, is so easy. Okay, now this one doesn't look the best, but it's like a creamy potato corn chowder. We eat this kind of thing quite a bit too. And, there's different versions of it. I'm sorry. And that would be one of my kids calling right now. Okay. Okay. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Looks
okay,
good.
So, all right, now here's an Asian salad. We eat this. So this one has some quinoa thrown in, and then the different kind of, maybe like a citrus vinaigrette or something, but more Asian. And then this made me also remind you to say, some nights what we do is we just have a salad bar, and we put out like all these different salad bar ingredients, and then they can kind of build their own. This is that falafel, so chickpeas, little falafels, and I think this can be family friendly. Little gyros with the falafel or Greek. This is a mac and cheese, and the cheese sauce has cauliflower in it and nutritional yeast. It's something that I like, and some, there's definitely some kids out there that would eat it, I think. And then here's another example of kind of like, a salad, but this is the more Southwest flair. And then pizza, we do eat pizza around here, and this is what my pizza would look like. But if you have, that pizza is something that they, other people can top with other things as well. But you're still all eating the same entree, I guess. And then I guess here's kind of that salad again but presented in this way. So sometimes it's kind of about presentation too, where you're making it a little bit more fun for the kids and they can kind of pick and choose how much of each ingredient they want. But again, you're still eating the same thing. So I think the presentation and even how you're chopping things up maybe sometimes helps. So those are just some of my quick ideas. But like I said, definitely I encourage my clients to plan menus as much as possible. And I try to do like a week at a time. And then, like I said, using theme nights to make some of the thought process a little bit easier. And then, and just having these dishes where for the most part, you're all eating the same thing, but if somebody else wants to add a little meat or cheese or something at the end, then that's still possible. But I want to keep it as easy as possible on the chef, right? Which is in my house, me. And then before I go, I just wanted to mention, I do, like Terry said, I do offer an online course, and we literally just started one. So if anybody in this group still wanted to hop in, I would say, yes, you definitely still can. Just go again to my website. And then if you click on services, you can see it there, and then use the code PB now, and you can save a little bit of money and hopefully get into it by this weekend. So we'll have you up and running by next week. So it's an 8-week course where I do live coaching calls every Monday night with people, and we have a lot of fun. And I know tonight on this call, there are some alumni from Plant U. So that's fun to see them here. So anyway, those are just some of my ideas. I don't see any questions in there, but I'm so excited to hear Karen and all her ideas as well. And I love PCRM. I get a lot of information from PCRM. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. All right. Anything else, Terry?
Nope. Thanks so much, Joy. That looked good. And a lot of those things look like they'd be relatively easy to prepare too.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we do a lot of soups. I try to do more fresh, the fresh salads and stuff, but yeah, stir fries. We do a lot of stir fries in our house as well. So, because that is something, again, too, everybody loves, different stir fries. So the stir fries, the Asian, the Indian, the pastas and soups. Yep. They're all pretty family friendly, I would say.
That curry looked very good.
Yes.
Well, thanks a lot, Joy.
Yeah.
And once again, as well, Joy has her screen up there too.
Yeah.
One of the things both Karen and Joy do that is so important to this whole thing is to make it that much easier to make the transition and to be successful in it. A lot of people, me personally, I did it on my own because I didn't know of any place to go to get some help. And even though the results were outstanding pretty quickly, I could have done a better job of it. And certainly having a coach, and I think even in Dr. Ornish's study, or I should say very much in Dr. Ornish's study and many of the other ones, the idea of having other people going through it with you makes it that much easier. They have the same kind of questions at the same time often. And it makes a big difference. So I'd encourage anybody even people who are already plant-based. I've got to think Karen and Joy certainly would enjoy having somebody who's experienced to be able to say, yeah, Joy's right there, and Karen's right. I agree with that type of thing in the group. So
yep, it is definitely fun to do it as a group and have the mutual encouragement each week.
Well, thanks a lot, Joy. And our featured speaker tonight is a registered dietitian with the Washington, D.C. based Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM, that Joy was just talking about, that got so many great resources. With over 16 years of experience working as a dietitian, she understands the challenges we were talking about individuals face making dietary changes, and she enjoys helping them find strategies to make eating healthy, easy, and delicious. She especially loves helping families cook and eat healthy plant-based meals together. Our speaker also loves to run and placed in the top 1% of women finishers in both the 2015 and 2016 Boston marathons, and will be running again on Monday. Like Joy, our speaker is also a mother of 3 and is proud of the healthy eating habits of her children, her husband, and others in her family have adopted, and the health benefits they've experienced as a result. I'm delighted to welcome our featured speaker tonight, nutritionist Karen Smith. Karen?
Thanks, Terry. And Joy, it's so nice to meet you. It's always wonderful to meet another plant-based dietitian. I wish we lived closer because I'd be coming over to your house for dinner.
Well, and I'm thinking I'd love to go for a jog with you.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll set it up.
Oh man. Oh yeah.
You bring the food. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Let me go ahead and get my screen all set up here. I'm going to go ahead and share. Yeah, it's really wonderful to be here. And I always enjoy, this is my second time talking to this group, and it's always fun to chat with Terry in advance and just figure out what the topic will be. And I was really excited that he was up for something a little bit different and talking more about strategies to help you actually follow through with eating a healthy diet, or maybe doing some other things related to lifestyle that you want to do and you know are really good for you and might be having trouble with. Does anyone ever feel like you're spinning your wheels a little bit? I know I have. So again, thanks everyone so much for being here. As Terry mentioned, I am a dietitian, and I work full-time actually at the Barnard Medical Center, which is associated with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And much of what I do is see patients via telehealth. And I also have the joy of teaching a 12-week nutrition coaching program, which I asked to create, and feel like it's really become my baby since I started in 2021. So we are actually now in the 7th iteration of the program. The first class was actually just last evening. And one of the really cool things that has happened over the course of time and really listening to the participants and what they think would be helpful is that we've had past participants who have gone through the program and really done some amazing things in terms of changing their lifestyle and having some pretty amazing results come back as what we call pacers. And so this group of pacers helps me. We break out into small groups in the Zoom room. There were 64 people on the call last night. And each of the pacers is like someone, if you're familiar with any type of running event, you can show up, and there are oftentimes people who might have a sign and say, like, if you want to run this time, come with me. I'm going to help you get across the finish line in the time that you want. And so that's what our pacers are. They're guides for people to really help them make the changes that they want because they've done it themselves. And so as others are sharing about, success stories, I just wanted to share that one of the pacers last evening shared that in the prior 12-week program, at the start of it, she was taking 130 units of insulin a day. She has type 2 diabetes, and she also has been a binge eater for much of her life. And over the course of the 12 weeks, so the very last day of the 12-week program in that class, it was the first day that she took no insulin at all. And that was back in March, and she's continued to remain off her insulin. And like, completely amazing. I was almost crying, like listening to her share this story with everyone. And so she's now a guide for others in the group to help people, do what she has done in the midst of being a caregiver for a daughter who has special needs and a mother-in-law who's aging. And so, despite the challenges we have, despite the stress we might have in our life, it is possible to do this. And the model that you're seeing here that you've been staring at, is the model of lifestyle medicine that I'm so passionate about, and what I base my program on, and I'm going to try very hard to touch on each of these, like, so that we're actually kind of engaging and feeling what each of these is like. Maybe not so much sleep, but when we end tonight, hopefully you'll all, be able to rest very well tonight. But lifestyle medicine is the use of evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic interventions. So there are six pillars. So they include a plant predominant whole food eating pattern, regular physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, the avoidance of risky substances like drugs, tobacco, and alcohol, and positive social connection as a primary modality delivered by clinicians trained and certified in this specialty to prevent, treat, and often reverse chronic disease. So my colleagues and I at the Barnard Medical Center are all certified in lifestyle medicine, and really use this as a foundation to help our patients. And people might ask, well, is lifestyle medicine different than conventional medicine? And the College of Lifestyle Medicine says, no, absolutely not. Lifestyle medicine is actually the foundation of conventional medicine, and that clinical practice guidelines for the top lifestyle related chronic diseases support lifestyle medicine as the first line of treatment before medications. And these 6 pillars are so interconnected. And so I really love that I have the opportunity to explore each of them with my patients and ask them how they manage stress, what their sleep looks like, how they move their bodies, and so on. Because often these other areas, I'd say especially how we manage stress, can really interfere with our ability to stick to eating a healthy diet. And so sometimes I'm talking to people about, given we're talking through strategies for managing stress sometimes before we might even jump into, changes with nutrition. And so coaching is really something I've fallen in love with over the past 5 years or so. It really is all about helping people get traction on what's important to them, helping people figure out what it is that they want their health and happiness to look like, and taking off in that direction. And so in the past, being a dietitian, a lot of what I did, I felt was often like telling people, what to do and giving instruction and being more prescriptive. And with coaching, it's this beautiful relationship of really listening and asking a lot of questions to help people really uncover for themselves, what it is that is important, what their challenges are, and what they want to do, what actually feels like a doable and meaningful change that will help them, achieve the health that they want. So there's a lot more autonomy involved in that coaching relationship for the patients. And so right now, Terry, I hope it's okay that I wanted to kind of run this as I would run the coaching program that I facilitate. And one of the first things that we do each week is take a little time, just a couple of minutes, to take some time out and really be present in the moment. And so I'm going to ask each of you to do that now. Many of you are off camera already. If you're not, feel free if you're more comfortable. We're going to do what Dr. Dean Ornish, who has been mentioned already, uses in all of his therapeutic interventions and studies that he's conducted. We're going to do a very short mindful meditation. So right now, I would love for each of you to just take a minute to get comfortable. Maybe sit down if you're not already seated. You can lie down if you want, and just close your eyes and start to tune into how your body is feeling right now in this moment. Like notice, pay attention to any tension that you might be feeling. Take a few deep breaths in and out. And I'm going to play a video for you of Dr. Dean Ornish guiding us through a very short mindful meditation.
Meditation, breathing techniques, biofeedback bring to our awareness what we're doing that's creating stress in our lives and what we can do to change that. Allow yourself to take a deep breath and bring your right hand onto your chest and your left hand onto your belly. When you take a deep breath, and let's try it together now, let your left hand come up first. In other words, let the air fill up your belly, and then slowly, as your air comes up your belly, let your chest begin to rise. Hold the breath just for a moment, and then exhale from the top down. Inhale again. Hold your breath for just a moment, and then exhale slowly. If possible, try to make your exhalations longer than your inhalations, because it's when you exhale is when you relax most fully. Continue this process for 5 or 6 breaths at your own pace. Now, as you're doing this breathing practice, try to pay attention to what you're doing. In most cases, your mind will wander. That's normal. When you become aware that you're thinking of something other than your breathing, just bring it back to your breathing over and over and over again. And then you have not only a breathing practice, but you also have meditation. Because meditation is nothing more than the practice of paying attention. When you pay attention, when you become more aware of how you're feeling, you can do something about it.
I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, and I'm just curious if anyone would like to share what you thought about that. How do you feel now?
To share, if anybody wants to either raise their hand if they've got their camera on, or just push the in the reactions area, you can hit the raise hand. There you go.
Oh, there
Okay,
we go.
Michael.
Go ahead, Michael.
Do you want to unmute?
Hi there. Actually, it's Vicki and Michael. And I always love the opportunity to take a moment to be present and mindful. I think if you can do that periodically through the day, it just really lowers the tension. If you take like 1 minute just to say, what am I feeling? What am I smelling? What am I, touching? I just feel like when I'm in a very stressful period of my life, if I can just remind myself to do that a few times a day, it really has amazing results. So thank you, because I've been really stressed.
Thank you for sharing. Did you say Julie?
Vicki.
Vicki, thank you so much. Yeah, that was beautiful.
And we have a few chat items here.
Oh, more relaxed.
Patrick said much better. Robin said relaxed. Jenny said feel relaxed, or I feel more relaxed. And I certainly do too.
Wonderful. So, hold on a second. I'm not going to play it again. So any thoughts on why meditation might be included in a lifestyle medicine program, like something like that? or how that could help us with, if we're talking, if this group is mostly meeting to talk about eating a plant-based diet, well, how in the world could, taking some deep breaths or paying attention help?
I see in the chat box here too, it says, I really took breaths. Sometimes I breathe too shallow.
Yeah.
And let's see, Jessica said it. First one I started months ago doing 4-7-8 breath. I felt lightheaded, but then realized I was breathing too fast. Then I released myself. The pressure to perform and just slowed myself to be and observe. Anne said calms and centers one, aware then of all around you. So in regard to, as you were saying, Karen, what how does this relate to eating? Could be that as well.
Yeah,
Sarah said-
absolutely.
and Sarah said it's great to be in the moment.
Absolutely. Karen, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it would help with making wiser decisions on the fly. To just take a couple deep breaths before making a decision, whatever that decision
Oh.
pertains to.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like anytime we're feeling stress and anxiety, the part of our brain that is good at making decisions isn't functioning very well. Right. Like when we're in that fight or flight state, like, our physiology is just really focusing on like, how can we run away? How can we fight something off? And so taking those deep breaths really helps calm down our nervous system and can give us that space to really just, have a few seconds to think like, what would serve me best in this moment? So absolutely. Vicki, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to add, we're talking about eating, and mindful eating is really hard in today's world. We're always watching TV. I'm sorry, we were eating while we were listening to Dr. Lieberman, multitasking here. And so I think the idea of really enjoying your food and thinking about it as you're eating it, tasting it, it keeps you from, sometimes I'll eat a meal quickly and then I'll start looking for more food. It's like, well, I've just had a complete meal. Why am I rummaging through to look for chocolate or, some kind of sweet thing? And it's because I think I just haven't paid attention to the fact that I've just eaten.
Yeah. And today, so many people, if you're eating by yourself, you're looking at this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So tuning in and paying attention is really what helps us, right? And paying attention to like, how do I feel right now? What is going on in my body is one of the most, evidence-based ways too. It's not just like, oh, we're talking about how we feel. Like mindfulness helps us change our behavior. And so when we're talking about adopting a new way of eating, paying attention to how we feel, paying attention to how what we're eating is serving us and helping us get the results that we want, it can be an incredibly important strategy. I have one other question.
You just mentioned too, Carol put mindful eating nourishes both mind, spirit, and body, and helps us focus attention on the texture, taste, and smell of the food we eat. It also slows us down.
Yeah, all wonderful. Absolutely. Right. So many wonderful things that just paying attention, being present can do for us. Okay. So any thoughts? I'm so sorry. Every time I click on my slides now, I'm hitting that. To play again.
And techniques, biofeedback.
Okay. Who thinks, so here's one thing. Who thinks if I just had more willpower, I would achieve my health goals? Anyone ever think that? Like, oh, it must just be my willpower. If I only had more, it would be easy. Because I'm asking because a lot of people that I see are in groups like this, and they have a lot of knowledge about what to eat, and they understand that like, oh, a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet is really healthy for me. That might help me lower my blood pressure or cholesterol or blood sugar. Maybe I'll feel better. I'll get off some medications, whatever it is. And they have like tons of knowledge and they're struggling with the follow through of actually doing it. Right. And sometimes it can feel like I must just not have any willpower. And one of my most favorite researchers, his name is Dr. Judd Brewer. He researches mindfulness. And he has some great podcast episodes. If you're a Rich Roll podcast fan, he's been on there a couple of times. And one of the episodes focuses on cravings. That's one of my favorite topics to talk through with people, and addiction. And he says willpower doesn't exist. Like, to some extent it does, but in the sense that we need it to adopt a new behavior, he's like, nope, it's a myth. That is not at all what people who consistently do healthy habits have in common. It's not that they have more willpower. Any guesses on what it is? They do have some things in common. One really important one. And that's that they actually enjoy the way the healthy habit makes them feel. They will say, it's easy. Like for me, as an example, I love to run. It's not a chore for me. I'm not using willpower to get out there and do it. It makes me feel so good. Even on days like I have an injury right now, but I love that it connects me with other people who have shared a lot of ups and downs with me as we've gone through life. The way that it clears my mind. I hear the birds chirping in the morning, right? So like, that's the point I want to make. It's not willpower. It's finding ways to enjoy the things that we want to do. All right. And yeah, of course, they have established a habit. Absolutely. All right. So how do we do that? And I felt like I had to, at some point, just describe a little bit what a healthy diet is in this call tonight. We're not going to focus largely on that, but in the program I teach, we have to set some parameters. People are coming into the group and they're not exactly sure what they're getting into. So before we dive into this, I had asked Terry to create a couple of polls, and I'm wondering, I might actually be able to launch them, huh, Terry, since I have, let's see. I just wanted to get a sense of the group where we are. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. All right. So the first question is, what % of your current diet is whole plant foods? So I hope everyone can see that.
By the way, the answers are anonymous. Nobody, we have no way of telling who, is answering.
Wow. Okay. I will end the poll. It looks like we're getting close to 70% of you have answered. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And can everybody see the results? So, wow, this is probably a little bit unlike many of the other groups I'm talking to. The majority of you are eating a predominantly whole food plant-based diet. Fantastic. And some of you are not quite there yet. How about the next poll? Let me stop sharing. And I said not quite there yet, right? That's the important word, yet. I am curious, what's important to you in terms of like if there's any health related conditions you'd like to improve. And feel free, if it's not listed here, to share it if you're comfortable.
Yep, you could put it in the chat, or you could raise a hand and we can call on you to unmute.
Give everyone a few more seconds here. All right, so most of you have answered. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and this one is not as close as the other, so it's always interesting for me to see. There's quite a mix, and every single one that was listed got some votes, right? So we're coming here with very different things that we're working on improving, right?
And one question in the chat was longer life and higher
Yes.
quality.
Longevity. Wonderful. I'm going to add that one on there. That's a great one.
And higher quality.
Absolutely. So last question. How do you feel about learning about behavior change? Good people. All right. Most people have answered. Okay, this one is very close to almost everyone answering the same way. So most of you said you strongly agree with that. And I'm glad, because that's what I love it. It's what I've come to like really adore, because the science of food, I love learning about nutrition. And at the same time, like some of it is really hard for me to grasp. Like when some people's brains are just really good at understanding like the biochemistry and physiology, and my mind was never wonderful at that. But I love understanding how our minds work. And to me, that just comes more easy for some reason. And so that's part of coaching though, too, that I love. It's like, oh, let's pull the strengths out of each of us and really utilize them, right? Like we can really find our strengths and then figure out how we can use them to serve. All right, let me go ahead. You can still see my screen. So I just want to define a healthy diet, because regardless of what you said is important to you, it's like, wow, we have one really one solution, right? Like in terms of diet, that's what I love. It's like when someone says, oh, I want to lower my blood pressure, I want to lower cholesterol. I'm like, great. I have like, maybe there are some slight variations or certain foods that might help one more, right? But the overview is the same regardless. And we're going to first start by just I always like to contrast like a whole food plant-based diet with, you know, what people are actually eating in the United States, and just seeing that like, wow, it's really devastating how chronic diseases are affecting adults in the US when we see these statistics. On one hand, right? And that our diet is the #1 cause of early death. So I don't know about you, but when this first came out, and like, as I've, you know, used it in writing papers in the past, that the diet, they're talking about dietary risk factors. And I'm like, well, what are they talking about? What are dietary risk factors? So here they are. There are certain things that contribute to that high rate of death due to diet. And these 3 things in particular, so people not eating enough whole grains and fruits and having a high intake of sodium accounts for 50% of diet-related deaths. And look at this, right? Like when we see that most adults are not even eating 1 serving of fruit a day and not even 2 full servings of vegetables. And then we get down to legumes, which are like my favorite food group. I think they're amazing. And that's like, wow, really like 1/10 of a serving a day of beans and lentils. And, you know, since that high intake of sodium was one of the things that contributes to mortality, I always like to point out, it's interesting how people might say to me, I don't put salt on any of my food. And it's like, well, most of it isn't coming from the salt that you're adding. Like the huge majority of sodium in the US diet comes from processed foods and restaurant meals, right? Many of you, I'm assuming, you know, now that I've seen the polls, I'm like, you probably already know this. And these are the top sources of sodium in the US diet. So what isn't listed here? Like not a single whole plant food do you have to worry about when you're thinking about sodium, right? It's bread. And that one is surprising to some people. Does everyone know that bread is quite high in sodium? doesn't necessarily taste salty, but it's just interesting as you're going out and shopping now, like looking and comparing. Not all, they vary pretty drastically depending on brands, but they can be quite high, and cereals too. So the other 50% of death related to diet is caused by high intake of red meat and processed meats, sugar sweetened beverages, and high intake of trans fats. So I then like to just say, let's define what a healthy diet looks like. Very simple, in my opinion. This is what the World Health Organization says a healthy dietary pattern consists of: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, period. So I love it because it's simple and we're keeping the focus on food and not nutrients. We're not saying it's like a certain percentage of protein or fat or carbohydrates. It's like, nope, let's build our meals on these really healthy whole foods and keep things like processed foods, animal products, refined sugars, and salt really low or avoid them. Pretty simple in my mind. And this is the Physicians Committee, their power plate image. And I always tell people, you don't have to make your meals like exactly like this. Some people ask, do I have to have like a quarter of my plate consist of each of these food groups? No. The point is that we really want to be building our meals with foods from each of these 4 food groups. And that's it. Like, if we are just focusing on these 4 food groups, of which there's a huge, massive variety to choose from, like, we win and we do really well. And this is what Americans are consuming. So by contrast, it's quite the opposite, right? Like a very small percentage, only about 10% of calories in the US are coming from whole plant foods. So sorry, feel like I'm being a little bit dismal right now, but I look at it as like, wow, we have a huge opportunity here. And that's also part of like coaching and with trying to help people with behavior changes. Like, how can you fix something that might seem like a challenge or is negative to an opportunity, right? So now we know we have so much opportunity and room to improve, and that's exciting. All right, so that's my little dietary spiel that I give to people who are new to the program. A lot of you probably know way more than that. And now we're going to spend some time on how you take, the knowledge that you have and put it into action to get the results that you want. And since many of you are already eating a predominantly plant-based diet, maybe there's another one of those pillars of lifestyle medicine that you struggle with. I know for me, it's sleep. I don't get enough of it. And so that is something that I'm currently working on improving. So you can certainly choose one of those other things. I just threw out 12 weeks because that's what it is for the program I teach. You can certainly fill in that time frame with something else of your choosing. But just think about, in the next 12 weeks or 6 months or year, whatever time frame you want to go with, what exciting outcomes do you want to achieve? And I see Michael, are you typing a question? Do you just want to ask it?
Yeah, I was going back to your last plate that had the 4 types of foods. And I was going to ask, for people who are unfortunately cursed with celiac.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that are offered are high in calories, that are offered as replacements, are high in calories and don't always have great nutrients. Are there any grains that are gluten-free that you preferentially recommend?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and especially when we're thinking about grains, like that, it just said grains, but preferably whole grains. And the more that we can choose intact grains, so not grains that have been ground down into a flour and then, used to create a food like, crackers or bread, not to say that those are bad, but the whole intact grains are going to give us the most bang for our buck in terms of nutrition, and are much lower in calorie density. So things like quinoa, millet, buckwheat, that's probably my most favorite gluten-free grain. If you've never tried buckwheat, it's delicious, at least to me. Corn is a gluten-free grain. You can get certified gluten-free oats, which for some people with celiac disease might still have to be avoided. What am I missing in the gluten? Amaranth is a gluten-free grain. Teff. Anything else? If I've missed any, feel free, anyone, put them in the chat box. But there's a great variety, Michael, of gluten-free whole grains to explore.
Karen, I'm just going to jump in here for a second. We just got back from Disney World last week with our grandson. And in Epcot, in the France section, we got crepes. In the area that you get crepes there, they bring the ingredients over from France. And they had a number of buckwheat crepes. I had a buckwheat crepe. It was outstanding. Now, I've got to say my grandson wasn't that happy with the buckwheat, but I thought it tasted outstanding.
That's
So-
fantastic. Yeah, I actually hear Disney has some pretty nice options, healthy options for people eating a plant-based diet. That's awesome. Okay, any other questions in the chat box? Farro is not gluten-free, nor is barley. Barley, wheat, rye. All right, let me go ahead and share. All right, so just thinking about the things that you'd like to achieve in the next 12 weeks. What exciting outcomes. And usually the things that I hear first are things like, oh, I'd like to lose weight or lower blood pressure. It's something related to like a number many times, not always, but a lot of times that's what I'm hearing. And that's great. And also I would say those things are often, or like I want to take less medication, right? So those types of outcomes are things that we want to avoid, right? We want to avoid taking the medication. We want to avoid having high blood pressure, having extra weight, whatever it is. And I always like to explore then, like, what do you want, right? Like, how will having a lower blood pressure affect your life? What will be different for you? What will be better? And try to shift the focus on like, when you envision your life, whether it's in 12 weeks or 6 months or a year, what do you see yourself doing? That's exciting, right? Like trying to make it a little bit more action-based and going off like, how do you want to feel? And then also thinking, right? So taking it a little, another step further, like when I achieve my goals, like I said, how will my life be different? Like what's going to change for me? Why is that important if to lower my blood pressure? And then you can just keep going, like just keep asking yourself the question, like what else? And what else? And what else? And you can keep going and get like kind of peel back the layers of the onion there and get down to some things that are just super, super important to you. And who else will benefit from your success? And then juxtapose that with what happens, like just consider what happens if nothing changes. What if I do nothing? What will my life look like then? Sometimes that can be really powerful for people to think through like, wow, if I don't do anything, my life or my health is headed in this one direction. And if I change, wow, it might open a door to, you know, being off insulin, as I mentioned earlier about the one woman, and, you know, just really enjoying life and feeling good and having a lot more excitement, you know, to get up and face the day. So here are some questions as you're considering writing a vision statement. So this is what I do with most of the people that I meet one-on-one is really help them create a vision statement and tell them like, this is our GPS. As we're doing work together, this vision statement is the person that you want to become, who you want to grow into. And so the actions that you are going to take, like, are going to help us figure out, like, is that the right action to take? Is that helping you get to where you want to be and the person who you want to become? And when it comes to values, aligning, like just thinking through what values you hold most dear can be really important. And there's lots of science to show this, that, you know, when you think about saying something like, I want to lower my blood pressure, if that's the goal, that's hard to like live every day. Like that's somewhere in the future. There might not be a whole lot of meaning behind, you know, getting a number down below 120/80. But if you think about like, you know, kindness is important to me, or honesty, or hard work, or whatever the values you have and hold most dear, those are the things that you can live every day. And we can always find ways to align the action steps with the values that you hold. And that's really powerful. And then also asking again, like, what results do you want to achieve? And taking it that step further and just asking not so much only about the data points, but like, what do I see myself doing? Like, what do I want to be doing differently? How do I want to be feeling? And what behaviors do you want to do consistently? Like for me, I said, I'm working on my sleep. In 12 weeks, I want to be sleeping at least 7 hours, you know, at least 5 nights a week. I'll be really happy. Why does this matter to you right now? How important is this? And actually, sometimes in doing these questions, we find like sometimes people say, you know what, it really isn't all that important. I thought it was, or my doctor told me it was, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter that much to me. And that's okay. Like that's important. As the doctor said earlier, like we have to be motivated to do something. So then we might have a different conversation or explore other things that are more exciting to that person. Your strengths and talents and abilities, like how will you harness those to help you along your journey? This is one of my favorite things. So I was talking to a gentleman a few weeks ago who knows, who's like read all of the books on plant-based nutrition, has all the knowledge, and is stuck. Like, he's just like, I'm not doing it. And he's the CEO of an accounting firm. He's got a couple dozen employees. I was like, wow. I'm like, you were super successful, like in your business. How'd you do that? Right? Like finding something in your life where you're like, wow, I'm really proud of what I achieved, and figuring out like, how did I do that? Or sometimes people tell me they quit smoking and I'm like, that's really hard. How'd you do that? And trying to find the ways that we can draw on those strengths that you've used in other areas and apply them to these new goals, right? So with that man I was talking about, he was saying that like it was so important for him to work hard to support his family. So family's really important. And I also asked like, wow, you have a lot of employees. If I asked, you know, if I took like 5 of your employees and sat them down and said, and asked them like what kind of boss you are, what would they say about you? And he said, oh, they would probably say that I really encourage them to learn and to grow, and I'm patient. And I said, huh. And what happens if one of those employees does something wrong? Like, how do you respond to them? He's like, oh, we usually have a conversation and talk through and figure out like a solution or like how it can be corrected. And I was like, all of it led to like him realizing without me saying it that like, wow, I treat the employees, you know, how I respond to them when they make a mistake is a lot different than how I respond to myself when I make a mistake. Because he was in a pattern of eating processed vegan food and beating himself up for it. Right. So he took a step back and was like, wow, how about if I start to like treat myself like I treat my employees? And when that happens, use it as an opportunity to think about like, oh, what can I do next time? What can I learn from this and do better the next time I'm in this situation? And it's also helpful to think in advance of what challenges you might have to work through. So I'm a big fan of people visualizing, just like athletes do, or musicians. If you're going to give a speech, you know, you might actually put yourself in that moment where you're going to have a performance. And that can also be really helpful for our behaviors, right? Like actually visualizing what it is you want to do, and sometimes even putting yourself in a situation that's challenging. So a lot of times it might be related to social situations. I see that a lot in people eating a plant-based diet. Like, it's hard when they're out with friends or with family and it's uncomfortable, and it's like, let's visualize it. Like, what does success look like for you? You know, Thanksgiving dinner. What are you going to feel really, really good about? What would success look like? Let's visualize it and let's practice in advance how you want to talk to your family, what you want your eating to look like that day. How can it be successful? And then really important, who's going to support you, right? So you all have this group, and I have that group that I facilitate, which I think is like one of the most important components of lifestyle medicine. I might be a little biased just based on my own personal experience of how important social connection has been for me, but like, it's so critical for our health. And for whoever, if I went back up through the chat, I don't remember who said longevity and like a good quality of life is important. We know that social connection is very closely correlated with longevity. So finding the people who are going to help you and be there for you, and maybe someone you can call when you're having a tough time with whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the nutrition aspect, but encourage everyone to find your tribe. So here are just some of those core values. There's plenty of others out there, but I just like to throw them up and have people start thinking, like, might be an exercise you do of, identifying the one or two that are most important to you, and then thinking through like how you can, correlate those to those action steps or behaviors that you would like to improve, how you can use it to achieve your vision. So if you're all open to writing a vision statement, like after the session ends, I would love for each of you to practice this exercise. I encourage you to write it in present tense in first person as if you've already achieved it. So I've given a couple of examples here. And again, it really is getting down to like envisioning the type of person you want to be, what you want to be doing, and how you want to be feeling. So things like, I have more energy and I'm completing tasks without taking a break. I feel confident that what I choose to eat and buy for my family is healthy most of the time. And things like that I love, because we don't have to necessarily wait when someone tells me I want to be more confident, I want to feel more confident. We don't have to wait until we achieve the weight we want. We don't have to wait until we achieve the blood pressure we want. We can start to work on feeling confident today, like right now in this moment, like what can help me feel more confident? And those types of things are really important, because often I find when we start to focus on those things, like how we want to feel and the type of person we want to be, the things like blood pressure and blood sugar and weight tend to just happen, right? Because we're making the choices that align with these feelings and values that we want. So just a couple of examples here, like eating is enjoyable and nourishing, right? For some people, it's really hard. Like eating has been a chore. Maybe they've struggled with digestive issues for a long time or an eating disorder. And so finding a way for it to bring joy to their lives is really, really important. Oh, and I love this one. So socializing with my friends, somebody said like they wanted to be the person who was able to walk up to someone and start a conversation, right? Like, well, wow, let's work on that. Like, we don't have to wait to be, again, like a certain size or have a certain cholesterol. Like, we can start to do that right now. And that's really cool. And then, so once you have your beautiful statement written out, then it's time to figure out where you are now, right? So just as it, like I said, like that vision statement's the GPS, and you're going to think about like, am I going from the United States to France, or am I going from New Jersey to Pennsylvania? How much space do I have to bridge here? And then, so here are things that are important to assess. Do you have motivation? I would say each of you has shown up tonight. You're listening, you're engaged. I bet you're all really motivated, or you at least have a little bit. We just need a little bit of motivation to get the ball rolling, just a little. The next is self-efficacy. So we do have to believe that we can do it. And I'm putting these up here because we can always come back to this and identify where we are. Like, where are we in this stage of behavior change? Do we know what to do to get there? So sometimes there's a knowledge gap. Sometimes we need to learn like what it is to, what kinds of foods are the best for getting me the health that I want. And then how to do it, right? So once we learn like eating a whole food plant-based diet is super healthy and going to help me achieve the health that I want, how do I actually do it? How do I take that knowledge and chop vegetables and use an Instant Pot or make a smoothie? And then, right, once we start, we have the strategy, we have the tactics, we're practicing. Now we can do it. We have the ability. This is the one that I think is the hardest, at least in my opinion, for many people, and why I love coaching so much, because this is where I help people. It's in doing it consistently, right? A lot of times we can get on track, and like, if we use that analogy of going on a road trip, right? Maybe we get off track for some reason, right? Our GPS is going to reroute us and like keep telling us like, no, okay, now take this turn, take this turn, so that we get back on track. And in our own life, we can do that too, right? So that we don't just get off track one time and then like, we're heading towards Florida and all of a sudden, like now we're going back to New York for some reason. Like being able to identify that we've gotten off track and get ourselves back on track a little bit more quickly is really where we start to make the progress in doing things consistently. And that is where I personally think that curiosity and paying attention and mindfulness are the best, right? Like paying attention to what we're doing, paying attention to the results of our actions, how they're serving us, and noticing that when we do have a slip, if that's what you want to call it, like that's honestly an opportunity to learn and to grow. Like anyone who's ever achieved success had lots of failures first, and they use them as learning opportunities to figure out like, oh wow, how can I do this differently? How can I, learn from this experience and be prepared the next time I'm faced with a situation again to make a better choice? And then lastly, once we have created those habits, right, they just become part of our identity. I bet many people on this call would say like, I'm a whole food plant-based eater. Like it just is part of our identity, and it becomes easy, like as easy as brushing our teeth, or at least most of the time. So now you have your vision. The next step, right, is to break it down, right? In order to bridge that gap, you've got to set some goals. And I'm a big fan of SMART goals, which just means that we're being really objective and specific with the action that we're going to take. And I like to approach this as being an experiment. Like we can each be a scientist and throw things at the wall to see what sticks, to be quite honest. Like sometimes people are looking at me for advice on what to do. And, I might have some ideas, but ultimately it's up to them to choose what they are confident they actually will do. And, sometimes we really don't know what's going to work best until we actually try it. Sometimes people ask me like, how much fat should I have in a day? And I'm like, I don't like, what will tell you what the right amount is? Like what will tell you is experimenting and figuring out based on the results that you get. So making these things specific and measurable. And think maybe most importantly is achievable. And when I say achievable, my recommendation is to set a goal that you feel 100% confident you will achieve. Not 50%, not even 80%, 100% confident that you will achieve. And so sometimes that means recognizing the resistance that you have in yourself. Like I know for myself, going from sleeping like 5 to 6 hours if I'm lucky most nights, and saying like, I'm just going to sleep 7 hours every night of the week. Not going to happen. I've got to, do some things, have some strategies to maybe get 15 minutes of additional sleep to start, right? Like, oh yeah, I will do that. That's doable. Or even if it was 10, right? And the moment you feel resistance, like you think in your mind, no, I'm not going to do that. Make the goal easier, because that's ultimately how we build confidence and repetition, right? If we're able and willing to repeat that action over and over, we feel really, really good about following through, and we can always build on it. And then tracking your progress. So that's important too, just to collect some data. So not necessarily, again, we're not necessarily tracking the weight or the blood pressure or the cholesterol. Like, yes, that's great data to have too, but we're actually tracking, like if I say I'm going to walk for 3 minutes 3 times a week, I'm going to put it on I'm going to put a little checkbox on my calendar that I did it. So I can go back and say, all right, I did that 100% of the time this week, or maybe I did it 80% of the time. And when we do it 80% of the time, or anything less than 100, we often get stuck on that smaller percentage that we haven't followed through. And so being able to reframe and reflect and see that, no, actually you made progress, and that, following through 80% of the time is still like, that's a B, fantastic. And you're heading in the right direction. And asking like, was it more than you did the week before? So I always love to use this picture of, imagine that you're throwing a dart. Where do you aim? Right? For the bullseye. And that's the same thing when we set our goals. Like, we want to pick a goal, as I said, that we do feel is achievable. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we are always going to follow through, because things happen. And so just like in a game of throwing darts, if we miss that bullseye, and it will happen, right? We readjust, we reflect and think like, that's interesting. Like, what happened today? How was I feeling? What might have thrown me off track? And we recalibrate, and the next day we still aim for that bullseye. So I just love, right? Like, someone throwing darts doesn't miss the bullseye and then just say like, all right, I'll just keep throwing it at that last black circle instead, because I missed it one time, right? It takes practice and repetition. And oftentimes in other areas of our lives, we're able to do it. Like, we're able to see that practice and repetition are necessary. But for some reason, when it comes to health goals, that feels really hard. Okay, conviction is important. Absolutely. RJ just saw that comment in the chat box. So that is my deal on, setting goals, trying to create new habits. There's a whole lot more, probably many topics that we could pick apart and have a complete session on for sure. But I'd love to answer any questions you have, or, hear your thoughts.
If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat box, or if you'd like to raise the hand again in the reactions area, we'll try to find you. And
Karen, I'm just wondering, Karen, would you mind going back to the slide where you show there's three points in writing a vision statement?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
This
right
one?
there. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Very good.
All right, well, I don't see any questions or comments, so I am going to, I hope it's okay. I just wanted to share that the Physicians Committee, if you're looking for, any additional programs or resources, has quite a few. Many of them are free, like this online class series called Fight Diabetes with Food. It's starting up again, totally free program. Every Tuesday, if you're not there live, you receive the recording. So that is something that you're welcome to check out. We're also launching a brand new program in May with the help of clinical psychologist, Dr. Liana Abascal, for freedom from binge and emotional eating. So just two of the programs. There are many others on the Physicians Committee website, but just two that are upcoming that I wanted to highlight. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. So we talked about stress, we talked about diet, we talked about social connection, said we'll be going to bed shortly and I hope everyone rests well. We didn't cover the avoidance of risky substances. And then the last one is physical activity. So excited. Yeah, I see Sandra. I see you dancing. That's the point. Like putting on a song, your most favorite song, and just jamming is like one of the best ways to lift your mood, get some physical activity, have fun. So wanted to end with that little tidbit. We don't have to be working out in a gym or, going for a 30-minute walk. We can put on a nice song that we love and move our bodies, and it can be beautiful.
Years ago in my job, I came across something that talked about setting that vision that you were talking about, and wrote something down, and I had it in my desk drawer every day and would pull it out every so often. And it took me to it reached those other goals, as you're talking about in health here in this case. It reached those other goals that I wanted, just having that vision. I was working toward that vision, and eventually reached that point. So it is so powerful to use that as something to come back to when you run into the challenges or you're just trying to come up with the steps and stick to them.
Absolutely. You're having a bad day.
Yep. So let's see, I did want to, no, I guess there wasn't, I did have a question, but I think it's been answered. So Karen, thank you so much. This is
It's been a pleasure. It's so fun being here. Thank you, everyone.
And I wish you all the best on the streets of Boston.
Thank you.
I hope the weather's good that day. And just as a reminder to everybody here, our next monthly meeting is going to be Thursday, May 11th at 6 o'clock Central Time, when our featured speaker will be Denver cardiologist, Dr. Andrew Freeman, who will give us his excellent annual presentation on the best plant-based nutritional research from the past year. And he does it boom, boom, boom. He goes through 30 or 40 studies in the period of time. If you'd like to receive notice of this or other upcoming PB Now events and are not currently on our list, just Google us at PB Now or pbnow.org. Once you're on our homepage, click the white Learn More button to register, and you'll begin to receive notice of our upcoming events. Also as a reminder, if you'd like to check out our past meetings, like this meeting with Karen, you can go to the video library section on our website or search for us on YouTube under PB Now or pbnow.org and go back and watch entire talks, or go just skim through to the parts that you had an interest in. This should probably be up within the week or within a week. I want to thank Karen not only for tonight, but she also caught the ear of one of the head of the Barnard Medical. I'm trying to remember what.
Oh, Dr. Loomis?
Dr. Loomis, but it's Barnard Medical Center.
Center, yep.
And Dr. Loomis has been in, let's see, Game Changers, a number of other things like that. But very, very interesting guy who also, who at the age of 60 ran his first Ironman triathlon. So he's just an extremely well-spoken guy. Thanks again, Karen, so much for this. This is great. As you mentioned, it's an area we haven't covered before, and it's so key to helping become successful. Thanks to our medical director, Dr. Josh Lieberman. Thanks to Joy Lenz, for sharing your valuable time and knowledge with us tonight. And again, I'd encourage people who are looking to become plant-based or just want to sustain it and just improve what they're doing. Seek out somebody like Karen or Joy. The programs that they have change people's lives, and to have the ability to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, who's dealt with the kind of challenges that you may face, and to do it in some of that in a group session with other people who are doing this, trying to do the same thing you are, is well worth whatever it costs to join a program like that. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of those. So thanks again to our speakers, and good night to everybody, and thanks for coming.
Good night, everyone.